I guess it's my turn. Good evening. What a great evening this has been. If anyone told me when I was a kid, grinding through endless exercises, that I would make music my career, play at the White House for over 28 years, I would not have believed them, even for one iota. But here we are. And before going any further, I want you to hear the two most important words I'm going to say all evening. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I thank all the accordionists who are here, and accordion friends, and especially my non-accordion friends who came here to support me this evening. And to those who have spoken this evening and played, Jim and Beverly and Robert and Stas, there is no way to express my deepest gratitude for your kind sentiments. This evening stands out as one of the truly monumental experiences in my life. I will treasure and relive every minute of this many times in the years to come. I want to say a few words about the Air Force Rolling Strings, who played so beautifully for us during dinner. You may not know this, but when the AAA first requested the Air Force Rolling Strings to perform for this event, they were told the strings were not available because our event conflicted with their blanket 2-week leave. Amazingly, the musicians tonight all volunteered to play. And I am especially thankful to them for letting me play one final time before I enter the retirement phase of my career. I could not be more grateful to them. When told I should say a few words, I began the process of reflecting back and realized I should start with my parents. As my brother so eloquently said before, we came from an Italian family where music was always present and very important in our lives. They encouraged us to study music, and as Frank said, I was a 9 or 10-year-old, and they wanted me to play, and I started with piano and then banjo. But as a 9 or 10-year-old, I've had a lot of better things to do, like playing with my friends, baseball, or anything else that wasn't music. However, my parents were persistent. One day my mother asked me if I would like to take the accordion. I gave her the usual answer, not really, you know. But she convinced me to give it a try when she said if I didn't like the accordion after 1 month of lessons, I could quit. She would never ask me to play another musical instrument ever again. Well, that had a nice ring to it. We had a deal. 1 month of misery, and I'm free. Except for one thing. I forgot to stop. So today I'm forever thankful for their wisdom and for never giving up. As I was practicing in those early days, my brother Frank and sister Francine had to endure hours and hours of mine scraping through scales, arpeggios, and whatever pieces I was trying to master at the time. Tonight, my sincere apologies goes out to them for what must have been an air-splitting experience. Of course, none of what we are celebrating tonight would have been possible if it weren't for a lucky phone call my mother made to one of the finest accordion instructors in the country, Rudy Molinaro. Thanks to Rudy's brilliant guidance over the years, I went on to win 3 consecutive virtuoso national titles. Then at the age of 16, I stopped competing. Quit while you're ahead, I always say. However, that decision came to an abrupt ending in 1955 when I heard of a special contest being held to select a person, first person to represent the AAA at the prestigious World Accordion Contest, the Coupe Mondiale. It was to be held in England that year. I was so fortunate to have been chosen. It's interesting that of the 27 times that the AAA has sent a candidate to the Coupe Mondiale, Rudy's students or Rudy's students have represented our organization a total of 10 times. I thought that was quite an accomplishment. The same year, the ATG selected as its first representative our esteemed conductor this evening, Joanne Summers. And it was an experience so new and different for us. We had no idea what to expect, even though we didn't win the big prize that year. I'd like to think that we paved the way for others who followed. Returning from the Coupe, I spent my time teaching and concertizing. Hard to believe now, but in those days, accordion studios had hundreds of students, and they often gave recitals. Programs were often concluded with a performance by a guest artist, such as myself. Then one day, out of the blue, Rudy said that Pedro Darrow Jr., Lee Darrow as we called him, received a call from Colonel Howard, commander of the Air Force Band in Washington, D.C. They had an opening for an accordionist, and Lee thought of me immediately. Rudy said he thought it would be a great opportunity. After all, he said, you'll travel all over the world and stay in only but the finest hotels. He was right about traveling all over the world. Staying in the finest hotels, not so much. That's another story. Anyway, I auditioned for the job and thankfully was accepted. Ironically, when I arrived here in Washington, I had no ideas what my actual duties would be. It was only after settling in that I learned that I was going to be the first permanently assigned accordionist to the Air Force Strolling Strings. It turned out to be a unique and satisfying experience, all 28 and a half years of it. Performing with the Air Force Strolling Strings afforded me the opportunity to travel the world, see it in exotic locations, and playing in venues that took my breath away. I also had the very good fortune to play for 9 U.S. presidents at the White House as they entertained kings, queens, heads of states, and other luminaries. Only in America could a young man fall in love with music and wind up on the world's stage. Incredible. At this point, I would be remiss if I didn't say I owe a huge debt of gratitude to Rosemary. While I was performing all over the world, enjoying my career to the fullest, she was home raising our 2 sons, Kevin and John, to be the fine, extraordinary sons they are today. I could not be more proud. Our sons gave us grandchildren, Kyle, Lucy, Ellie, who you met earlier, whom we treasure beyond words. Again, Rosemary, those 2 special words that I mentioned earlier come to mind. Thank you. After retiring from the Air Force Band in 1985, I continued performing in the civilian world and was privileged to have so many fine, wonderful, and talented musicians with me. I was very fortunate to have Stephanie Myers in the group as my lead violinist. She was my rock during those wonderful times. She was my right-hand man, or in this case, right-hand lady, supporting me musically and as a collaborator. We talked about some of the events that we performed. I'll review some of them we may have touched upon. We opened the Pittsburgh International Airport International Terminal. We opened the remodeled Ronald Reagan National Airport right here. When that opened, we had played for 4 Rockefeller weddings, and as Stephanie mentioned, we performed, or I performed anyway, for 44 consecutive years in the dining room at Fort Myer Officers Club. I still can't believe that I last that long. Maybe I should ask them for some money now. And we also performed for 23 years at the Bowling Officers Club. But perhaps our most treasured accomplishment that was mentioned earlier also was working in concert with the Atlanta Olympic Committee in their quest for the 1996 Summer Olympics. Between 1987 and 1996, They took us to Seoul, Korea, Tokyo, Japan, Barcelona, Spain, and we were honored to play the opening luncheon of the games in Atlanta in 1996. Amazingly, another fantastic opportunity came out of nowhere. In 2012, I was asked to be a professor at George Mason University. My unique assignment was to teach a class of string students how to stroll and entertain an audience similar to what you saw the Air Force strolling strings do this evening. It was a challenge, but it was a fun time. That brings us to this evening, and I have been astounded by the energy and time spent on my behalf. I know special thanks to Joan and Dan Grauman for their efforts in too many areas to mention. But it is Linda Soley-Reed, who diligently worked so hard and so long on this project that I owe the greatest debt of gratitude. Linda, thank you. You are a dear friend. This honor on the same evening that the AAA celebrates its 80th anniversary is truly special. I am deeply touched and honored and humbled to be included with past recipients I have long admired. However, while I am the one receiving all the praise this evening, in my mind, the award belongs to all of us. It is our mutual love for the accordion that binds us together and makes us one. I know I wouldn't be standing here this evening if it weren't for the AAA opening the door for me so many years ago. Well done, AAA. 80 years of excellence. You set the bar high, and for 8 decades, you dedicated yourselves for the advancement of the accordion. For that, you have my utmost respect. Finally, I can't leave without saying that I consider each of you to be my friend. But most important, I am blessed and honored that you call me your friend. Thanks for listening. Good night, and God bless us, everyone.